So this started back in Chicago several years ago, actually, before the regulation that made this possible was even around or even being discussed. Back in 2010, there were entire sections of Chicago that were just essentially abandoned. There were vast tracts that just turned into a wasteland. They were good properties, and they deserved to have good families in them. But because of the housing collapse, the real estate collapse, there were just an enormous amount of properties that had been foreclosed on or abandoned, and banks weren't funding them because perhaps they needed some work. The longer that a property is abandoned, the more chance that it's going to require additional work. And we had properties that were attracting crime, that were dragging down values of the neighborhood around them, but they were still really good neighborhoods and really good areas. And so I started going to the foreclosure auctions in Chicago, and it was always the same 12 guys there. There were just these enormous amounts of properties that were available, and they were really good opportunities. For example, I saw a $300,000 property. It was worth $300,000 according to appraisal. It was a beautiful home. Had new roof, new windows, but the minimum bid on it was about $20,000, and nobody bid on it at all. And it stayed abandoned. It was a really good opportunity for just 20 grand. Nobody bid on it, but there were the same 12 guys there at all of these auctions that would buy up almost everything except for these smaller projects. They would be focusing on the $5 million or $50 million larger multifamilies or larger commercial projects and completely ignore this other section. So what I wanted to do was to make these opportunities available to people that believe the way I do. If I thought it was a good idea, there's a million other people out there that do as well. And I was going to put in, webcams and bring in local contractors and local artisans and rebuild these properties, reclaim these properties, let the community buy back their own neighborhoods, and put it all online and actually make it into a lucrative investment. And I went to my attorney at the time and I said, hey, this is what I want to do. And he told me that, hey, that's a great idea, but if you do it, you'll go to jail. It's public solicitation of securities. It hasn't been legal for 80 years, but I tend to be a bit stubborn, so I look for a way to make it legal. And that's when I started contacting the offices of Congressman McHenry and Congressman Dole, who were co-sponsoring the crowdfunding exemptions to the 2012 Jobs Act. And I lit up the phones to try and get other legislators to sign on to this act. And once it became known that it was going to pass the House, it was going to pass the Senate, and President Obama had indicated a willingness to sign the bill, I put together a team out in Chicago to actually go after this full time. And we all had day jobs at that point, and so after work we would take the train deep into Chicago to an incubator there, and I'd work until about midnight or 1 a.m. every night and take the train back and do it the next day. The 2012 Jobs Act did pass, and it allowed us to, for the first time in 80 years, publicly solicit for securities and be very transparent, to take our deals and go out on the internet and say, this is what we have, this is why it's a good opportunity, and this is why you should be a part of it. And that type of exposure is unprecedented in the securities world.